So you're thinking about making a move to the Boise, Idaho area, but as you've been doing your research, you're not 100% bought in, but you've started to notice that every video, everything out there, people just like me, tend to only give you the positives. We talk about how great Boise is, how everybody would love it here. It's a pure paradise. And you know that's just not the case. So today, I'm going to talk about some of those pros, the things that do bring people here, but I'm also going to talk about some of the cons. I'm going to get to some of just the direct things that people don't love about our area and things that if you knew of beforehand might have changed that decision whether this is the best place for you or not. So if this is something that's of interest to you, go ahead and stay tuned because I'm going to get into it all right now. One of my favorite things about living here in Boise, Idaho is that we do have a very distinct all 4 seasons here when in terms of our weather. We have a distinct spring, we have summer, fall, winter, we have some of the hot temperatures in the summer, we have the snow and the cold temperatures in the winter, and everything in between. As somebody who's from Colorado originally, I came up here over 10 years ago, went to Boise State, did the whole thing. I was just used to having all 4 seasons. This is just the way that the world works. You kind of cycle through all of them. And I always liked it because I never felt like I got burnt out. I wasn't completely just tired of summer and I needed cold. I was so tired of sweating all the time. Same thing on the other end. I always knew that spring was right around the corner, so you just had to push through the rest of winter once you were done with it. Up here, when we're talking about the summers, we are not going to be talking about anything overly extreme. We do, within probably typically August every single year, you're going to have a 2 to 3 week period where temperatures are going to get pretty hot. They're going to approach that 100 degrees, get into the triple digits for a couple of weeks. You're gonna feel really, really warm. The rest of the summer though is pretty solid in the 80s and 90 degree weather. This is gonna allow you to get out on the lake. You can do whatever outdoor activities that you're gonna want to do, but there are some kind of extreme spikes. And we have the same thing in the winter where most of the winter is not gonna be anything that I would say should scare you off. If you're not familiar with winter and you're not familiar with snow, it is gonna be a little bit of a shock, but what I typically tell my clients after living here for the past decade is you're gonna wanna expect about 2 to 3 snowstorms every single year where you're actually gonna have to get out with your shovel, your snow blower, your leaf blower, whatever it needs to be to kind of clear off your driveway and your sidewalk. And then in January, we typically have the same thing that happens in the summer where we have a 2 to 3 week period where temperatures start to get pretty cold. They'll approach that kind of 0 single digits in those teens for a couple of weeks, but we do have an extended period of time where it's actually under freezing. So really this comes down to wherever you're coming from. If you're familiar with all 4 seasons and this is something that you're looking for, Boise can be perfect for you in terms of the weather. But if you're coming from somewhere where you never really interact with snow, your winters, if you're coming from, let's say, Southern California, your winters are gonna be 40, 50, 60 degrees most part. You might be coming from Alaska where your summers don't get that hot. Whatever it is, Boise has a nice middle ground and we have all 4 seasons throughout the year, but that's how it kind of falls into pro number 1 and con number 1. On this same thread though, we're gonna hop into our second pro of the day and we're gonna talk about the outdoor activities that you have access to in the Boise, Idaho area. This is something that I'm passionate about and I talk about it a lot on the channel, but for the most part, Boise has every outdoor activity that you want within a 30, 45 minute drive, maybe an hour depending on the weekend that you're heading out to the mountains. If you want to go fishing, Boise has that. If you want to stay in town and go on the Greenbelt, you want to go on some hikes just outside of town behind Camel's Back Park, anything like that, Boise has a lot of those options. We're also just, again, a 30 to 45 minute drive to, you can head up to the Sawtooth or Idaho City, you can go whitewater rafting, you can go kayaking. If you want to go hunting, we have year-round hunting up here. We also have some really cool kind of like mountain bike, dirt bike tracks in our city itself. There are so many different ways to get out and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy that active lifestyle. And this in big part is due to the 4 seasons that we just talked about. In the summer, you can float the Boise River going down through. Once we get into the winter, we have Bogus Basin, which is just a stone's throw outside of town. We've got all sorts of different winter activities, from snowshoeing, you can go up and snowboard and ski. Whatever it is, year round, there is something for you to do, which makes this a really exciting place to live. Just a quick reminder, I am a licensed agent up here in the Boise, Idaho area. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 9 months, I would love to find a way to help make your Boise move as smooth as possible. I work with clients just like you all the time. So feel free, give me a call, schedule a Zoom so that we can meet in person, drop me a text, whatever it is. If you have a question and there's a way that I can help, I would absolutely love to. But let's go ahead and get right back to it. Jumping into the second con of the day, we're gonna talk about the wages that you can expect here and how that kind of relates to the affordability or lack thereof when we're talking about actually living here in the Boise area. This is something that I hear from clients all the time when they're kind of anticipating a move or they're thinking about if Boise is gonna be the right place for them. Figuring out what that wage is gonna be for their new job in their career and how that lines up with the affordability up here is a big thing. Boise is not going to be anywhere near the top in our country in kind of the average wage that you should expect. This runs the gambit too, from kind of the high paying, high level corporate jobs, some of your medical jobs, everything like that, but then all the way down at kind of the service level as well. As somebody who, again, I worked all the way through college, I worked at a country club, I served tables, I did all of the different things. Your service workers and stuff, you're not going to be rolling in the dough in any way, shape of the word. The minimum wage here in Idaho is still just $7.25. This does go down if you're still expecting tips, all of this. It's something on the whole that the average household here, I believe the average income for a household in Boise right now is floating just around $70,000. Now, all of this could be good news, could be bad news, wherever you're coming from, what's going to be different. But what really matters is, okay, but what kind of life does that get me here in the Boise area? And this is where we really do have this con when we're talking about our area, is the wages and stuff here have not grown much over the past decade or two. They're kind of staying extremely stagnant. Idaho is a very business-friendly state, so it is a right-to-work state, all of these things. Wages, we just haven't seen the wage economy really just grow, is what I'm trying to get at. But on the flip side, when we couple that with our housing prices, to be specific, our housing and our overall just valley has grown at such a rapid pace that we're starting to see housing prices and everything start to push up here. And this is both housing to purchase and to rent. But then we also have wages which are staying pretty stagnant. As this kind of gap continues to grow, that's where we're really starting to run into issues of, I can't afford to live here if I'm making the wage that I'm going to make here. So this is something where we have been kind of a haven for people who are working remotely and they're relocating from somewhere where they have a really high paying job and can afford the higher prices. But on the whole right now, this is a massive issue that hopefully our state is working on, because it's going to be something that we're just going to continue to run into more and more issues on. Jumping back to the pro side, we're going to talk about one of the things that I purely love about this area, and it is the low levels of traffic relatively. If you're somebody who's been here for a decade like me or more, you're gonna look at some of the traffic around town and you're gonna be like, Chase, this is not low traffic. I am sitting in my commute. I am bumper to bumper for 20, 30 minutes, everything like that. We are extremely lucky to have the traffic that we have in the area, where a 20, 30, 40-minute commute is completely bonkers, and it's something that we don't want to deal with. A joke I always run with some of my relocating clients is, hey, once you start to complain to me about your errands taking too long or your commute to work just being absolutely horrendous, that is when I know that you've been here long enough to be considered a local, is because now you're going to start to reframe your expectations. If you're coming from any large kind of metro area, you know that a typical work commute is going to be 45 an hour. There's going to be long distances that you have to make your way through. That is just not the case here in Idaho. Now, all of this is changing, and as we hop into the next con here, we're starting to grow at a pace that frankly, I don't think anybody was ready for, and our city hasn't always planned for the best. So some of this traffic is starting to show some issues because our overall road infrastructure is poor here in the area. Part of this comes down to, we only have one freeway. We have I-84 that kind of cuts through our entire valley. Outside of that, there are little state highways, which really are just kind of bigger roads. There's little side streets, everything that you want to cut down. But for the most part, our city just hasn't built the road infrastructure and the way to get people around town that it needs to kind of keep up with some of the growth and the population that is coming. This is something that I dive into a lot on some of my other videos. I have like a map tour that I show you all of the roads that are out there. But there are ways that if you're trying to get to the north and south ends of our city, it can take you 30-40 minutes just to traverse those because of the traffic and some of the lights and the way that the roads are set up. So again, relative to a lot of the bigger cities, we don't have a massive traffic problem, but this is something that if our city doesn't really get ahead of, we're going to continue to see that get just a little bit slower over time because population isn't slowing down, so we need to build that infrastructure with it. The next pro that I'm going to talk to you about is our downtown and just how clean it is. If you visited the Boise area, you know what I'm talking about. This is something that I remember seeing when I first moved here. I hear it from clients who are visiting, family, friends, all the time. Boise is so clean downtown. When you compare us to a lot of the bigger cities that we're compared to up here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't have anywhere near the level of trash, the smell, we don't have the homeless population. Overall, Boise is just a very clean downtown, and this is something that we hopefully can continue to see. This allows us to really take advantage of the restaurants, the bars, everything downtown that allows you to get out and enjoy without feeling like you're in that musty downtown. And as much as I love downtown Boise, down by the university, everything like this, one of the big cons that I had to get used to when I was moving here, being from Colorado again, in Denver, we have got a pro sports team for every single sport you could possibly imagine. Here in Boise, we just don't have that. We have Boise State University. The football here is probably as close to a pro sport as we get. We have a semi-pro hockey team. We've got the semi-pro baseball team. We have things for you to go out and do. We have teams for you to follow, things to get behind, but we don't have the big brand sports. And this is something where I don't see us getting those anytime soon. We are just nowhere near the level of growth that would really indicate us to be a big city that would need those. Now, if you are willing to, if that's something that you truly miss, you can hop up to Seattle. You're just going to be about an 8-hour drive or a very quick flight. You can head down to Denver. Portland has a few. There are options for you to get out and do it, but this is not going to be the place where you can take your kid to an NFL game, an NHL game, really give them that full experience. It's just not what we have here. And on this same thread, when we're talking about concerts or people coming to town, Boise is not going to be the one that's going to be on Taylor Swift's Eras tour. We're not going to be one where she's actually going to come to us. We do get some bigger headliners. We had Morgan Wallen last year. We had Garth Brooks a couple years ago, Luke Combs. We do get big names to come out here, but for the most part, those really top of the line headliners, they just don't put Boise on their schedule. They put more of the Seattle, the Portland. So again, just a very quick drive to get over there, but it's something to kind of keep in mind. If you want those attractions coming to you, Boise probably isn't going to be the place. Now, at the end of the day, I truly am biased, and I think Boise is a great place for most people to live. We have got so much to offer, and there really is a community here that you just don't get in a lot of places around the country. But this doesn't mean that it's perfect for everyone. When we're talking about looking at all of the pros and cons of a city like Boise, we are never going to get through all of them. So if there is something that I missed, drop a comment below. I would love to hear it. That way, when I make the next one, I can continue to add new perspectives and new things that maybe I haven't encountered or I haven't heard of people working. But if you look at this pros and cons list and you're like, you know what, I can deal with all of those things. This sounds like a great place for me and my family to live. All of my info is down in the description. I am a licensed agent up here in the area, so I would love to find a way to help you make your move to Boise as smooth as possible. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 9 months, I work with clients just like you all the time. So please reach out. You got my call, text, email, whatever it is, I'm the one who answers. I would love to find a way to help. But until we have a chance to talk, I will see you all on the next one.